So
Yeah.
I'll start with a quick good morning and hello to everybody who's joined us today. Thank you for taking out the time. I know it's a work day and we really appreciate your presence here. We'll start with a round of quick introductions. I'm Sudhir Eladith. I'm the co-founder and CEO at NST Cyber. I'm today joined by my colleague, Arun Thomas. He is also a co-founder and a CTO at NST Cyber. So before we go forward, I wanted to quickly give it a very brief intro about what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about continuous external security assurance today, with several changes that have happened over the last few years to the external threat landscape. CISOs and security leaders are finding newer challenges in protecting themselves from external attackers. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But before that, let me introduce our organization, NST Cyber. So we are a Bangalore headquartered organization, and we specialize in providing security assurance services to large enterprises. So, and we do this from an attacker's perspective. So we come from a deep offensive security background, and we believe that the only source of truth when it comes to an organization's security posture is when it is viewed from an attacker's perspective. We today serve customers in over 25 countries. We have customers from South Asia, India, Middle East, Europe, and North America. We call more than 75 global banks as our regular customers, including 5 of the largest private sector banks in India. We are also very fortunate to work with 2 of the global Fortune 10 companies. We are an empaneled contributor to Certain in India, and we also are a contributor of threat intelligence to MITRE Corporation. So with this, I will move forward and talk a little bit more about the challenges that the industry faces today when it comes to the external threat landscape that organizations are subjected to. So as we all know, organizations today are undergoing a rapid transformation with cloud adoption, with accelerated digital transformation. This is done to meet customer demands, to fuel business expansion, etc. But it is presenting an increasingly dynamic attack surface to cyber actors. And there are several reasons for this happening. Gone are the days when an organization could say with conviction that here is a list of assets that I'm exposing to the internet. That is not the case anymore. And let's very quickly examine the reasons for why it is happening. Shadow IT. Shadow IT is probably one of the most important and most pressing problems that organizations encounter today. It is very easy for business units or teams within an organization today to subscribe to cloud services. Provision workloads are exposing data into these platforms, etc., bypassing the IT departments. Ephemeral assets, mostly short-lived assets. The elastic nature of the cloud results in automatic provisioning of certain assets. Could be short-lived, could be because of functions like auto-scaling, load balancing, etc. However, even though these are short-lived assets, these sometimes hundreds of servers are provisioned when a particular application load is very high. And those are deprovisioned after the load goes down. However, these are still a part of the organization's external attack surface, and any weaknesses or vulnerabilities in there could result in an opportunity for an attacker. Inadvertent exposures of services and assets. So we see this quite a lot in the industry. Even with very mature organizations like banks, we see human errors sometimes causing exposures that are unintended. And all of this again brings us to the fact of crowd sprawling, right? So the rapid adoption of cloud, the rapid migration into cloud, all of these are adding to the mix of the problems that we're seeing today. Agile development, and another important point. Most applications today are developed in an agile mode. Decisions are taken and changes are made on the go, which contributes to the problem. Cross-interacting, hybrid, and multi-cloud solutions. Most organizations have presence across multiple clouds. There are integrations between these. These are adding to the problems. Supply chain. This has been in spotlight in the recent past, with multiple large enterprises having been reported to have been breached. where third-party suppliers were the entry point for attackers. Other issues like component vulnerabilities. Log4j is still fresh in our minds. The risks posed by component vulnerabilities from third-party and open source libraries and plugins, which are extensively used in any organization stack, throws in quite a lot of additional risk into the mix. Last but not the least would be change management, or rather lack of change management. Unplanned exposures when change management is bypassed or when as failure. So what we're seeing today is that the changes in how organizations operate today and conduct their day-to-day business, which has been accelerated probably by the pandemic. Everybody blames the pandemic for everything, but then there probably is a reason. So this has greatly impacted the external threats that an organization is subjected to. And the exposed attack surface has become extremely dynamic. It is not in control as it used to be. Of course, the security teams have taken notice. The industry has taken notice, and they are adapting to dealing with this problem. So we see today that security leaders and CISOs have at their disposal a variety of toolkits and programs to control this dynamic attack surface. External attack surface management tools are something that we have seen proliferating in the recent past. There are multiple vendors who provide the solution. External attack surface management tools are able to discover exposed assets continuously. They're able to identify potential exposures on these assets continuously. However, this EASM is a passive assessment-based platform. It does have quite a lot of noise. It is not validated and has false positives in it. It's often limited to infra and web assets. Cloud coverage is present in some EASM products, and it lacks attacker perspective. When I talk about attacker perspective, is the true offensive nature of cybersecurity assessments, which is lacking in EASM products. Vulnerability scanning has been around for quite a long time. We have seen a lot of providers with mature vulnerability scanning products, which sometimes combine external attack surface management into vulnerability scanning. But again, these are usually conducted as a point-in-time assessments. These also could be noisy, could have false positives. It identifies mostly known vulnerabilities. Are conducted mostly against a scope list of assets and is automated, and results are usually non-validated. So the problem with both of these solutions that we looked at is that the onus of validating exploitability and determining the actual risk of finding rests still with the customer. These toolkits, these tools give and produce a lot of data, but filtering the data and being able to identify the actual risk is still a responsibility of the customers. Penetration testing programs are run by most organizations. We again see this to be run with a particular cadence. We see quarterly penetration testings are conducted half-yearly at best. Sometimes it's annual penetration testing. Penetration testing is a manual exercise and is usually expensive. It is again conducted against a scoped list of assets. Most of the time it's time boxed because it's manual and expensive, and the results are only good for that particular point in time. The lack of continuity of penetration testing leaves opportunity for attackers because there is a freeze period between quarterly or half-yearly assessments, which provides opportunity for attackers to exploit critical vulnerabilities, which might not be patched in the meantime. The fourth set of tools that we wanted to quickly talk about is breach and attack simulation tools and red teaming programs. These are different from each other, but has some commonality. A breach and attack simulation is automated. Red teaming is usually delivered as a manual activity. Breach and attack simulation is based on playbooks and use cases, while red teaming is objective-based or catch a flag models, which is based on certain objectives to be met. Red teaming is manual and expensive, while breach and attack simulation tools are automated, can be run in a recurring fashion, while red team exercises are usually again time boxed. However, both of these types of assessments only cover a small percentage of exploitable risk. Breach and attack simulations use playbooks. They cover certain use cases, but need not have a complete comprehensive coverage. The red team exercises usually are again time boxed. You have so many certain number of days that you spend in conducting red teams, and usually is based on gaining initial access and meeting certain objectives that are a part of the exercise. So basically, what we see today is that the all of these programs which are run on with a siloed approach, mostly from different vendors, mostly from different programs as a part of different programs. These generate quite a lot of data, quite a lot of vulnerability data. Each of these systems would have different methods of risk rating, and what we see that the more number of tools and the more number of programs that are out there, the more the amount of data that is hitting the internal teams, usually vulnerability fatigue. So we also considered some of the other problems and challenges that modern CISO encounters. It is when you are bombarded with a lot of vulnerability data, you of course have to ask this question: which vulnerability do I fix first? How do I decide that? Well, I have risk scoring methods. I have other technical risk ratings available. But what about exploitability? I mean, statistics show that less than 10% of vulnerabilities are exploitable. So how do I determine which of these are exploitable? How do I do contextual business risk mapping? Is the exploitable vulnerability that is identified sitting on a high risk critical asset in my belonging to my organization, or is it not? How do I take those decisions on how do I use the scarce resources that I have when it comes to IT and resources that are available to mitigate? I mean, where do I use those resources most optimally? As been working in this domain for several years, we have also seen that blue teams and red teams usually do not collaborate very well. Red teams who are attackers, usually third parties like us, and internal blue teams whose job is to prevent, detect, and respond to cyber attacks, are not always on the same page. They usually sit on the opposite sides of the table. Red team has a job of identifying critical risk, of exploiting vulnerabilities, trying to usually make the blue teams look bad. And the collaboration is not really present in today's ecosystem. And in addition to this, we see that blue teams are not always risk aware. The SOC team might not always know where the critical vulnerabilities in their perimeter are. They might not be updated all the time about what are the business risks that the organization has from a security perspective. So we believe that the close collaboration between red and blue teams are absolutely critical for early detection and mitigation of risk. Another problem that we're seeing is that attackers are going algorithmic. I mean, we're seeing machine learning capabilities being exploited by attackers. The pace and scale of attacks are increasing. The predictions are that attacks would become hundreds of times higher in speed and volume. And the current strategies and tactics adopted using human intelligence only to defend might very soon be not enough to defend against attackers who are gone at machine speed. CISOs have challenges of investing into multiple products and services. We've seen the siloed approach earlier. Multiple toolkits, multiple programs are usually required to be invested in to handle the external security related issues. There is no real and sure way to demonstrate continuous improvement and report to the C-levels that, okay, these investments that we're making are continuously improving our external security posture. The return on investment is not always easy to be tangibly demonstrated to the management because of the multiple natures of the programs that are running and the lack of a scoring mechanism that can continuously track progress in these activities. Another pressing problem today is a lack of skilled resources. India, of course, has the largest number of certified ethical hackers in the whole world. But we still see a huge gap between demand and supply. The lack of resources are expected to get worse. And again, the current approach of throwing people and more resources at solving the problem might not yield the kind of results that is expected. And other serious problem that security leaders today have is for on-demand, quick deployment testing. We see this with a lot of large enterprises. The pace of digital transformation means applications are being built, they're being provisioned, existing applications are getting newer modules added to it. There is demand, there is a requirement for on-demand, quick turnaround testing before these workloads go from pre-production to production and go live. This has become a challenge again because business is pushing to move things to production. Security teams do not have the resources available to deploy quickly. So some of the challenges that we have identified by talking with CISOs that we work with, I just wanted to list out there and share that with you. But then we went ahead and asked the security leaders that we work with on what is it that they would like to see? What would be the expectation from an external security assurance vendor when it comes to managing your external attack surface? We have captured some of the points that we collected. One of the most important requirements is continuous discovery of workloads across cloud and on-prem data centers. Unless you are discovering and managing the assets that you have exposed, you cannot manage them, of course. The human validated and curated risk from an attacker perspective. Again, the importance here is to have prioritized risks, a prioritized list of high risks that are validated to be exploitable, validated to have a business risk associated with it, and to be able to see this on a single pane of glass on a continuous basis. Coverage across all types of workloads, applications, cloud, infrastructure, components, devices. The external attack surface of an organization has all of these components in there. So the coverage is required across all of these type of assets. Enabling a purple team approach where collaboration is possible between red teams and blue teams, both of them working hand in hand. The target and the objective is quick detection and early remediation of high risk. The capability to predict future exploits with confidence by understanding the landscape of the organization, to be able to leverage existing investments and budgets. And we see that attack surfaces are expanding. We see that attacks are proliferating, becoming more sophisticated, but cybersecurity budgets are not really keeping up in pace. So being able to do more with existing budgets available is going to be important. Finally, we have a point where the ability to convert security assessment observations. So these are continuous security assessment observations that we're talking about, being able to convert that into actionable threat intelligence, which can be consumed by the blue teams and the security orchestration layers within the organization. So these are some of the critical points within the wish list that we collected talking with industry leaders. The requirement, again, is to make sure that various different types of security assessments and assurance requirements are met. If you look at it, security assessments will need to be conducted on a continuous basis, triggered by attack surface discovery. You have a new asset exposed, you have a new exposure out there. You want to validate whether that exposure is exploitable on a quick and with a quick deployment. You want to conduct scheduled and in-depth security assessments that mostly meet compliance, conducted quarterly, half-yearly, etc., based on the compliance requirements. On-demand quick deployments for penetration testing and security assessments for go-to-market purposes. Organizations today are bombarded with different regulatory requirements. And since we work quite a lot in banking and financial services area, we see the number of compliances increasing on a day-to-day basis. So the compliance requirements and the coverage, which we talked about earlier, cloud applications, infra, components, devices, these are the pressing requirements today from a CISO's perspective. So what we did is we went back, we tapped into our experience of delivering offensive security for the last 5 years. And NST Assure is a product that's a result of the years of experience that we've been delivering offensive security to large enterprises. That leverages automation and machine learning with expertise from experienced hackers to deliver curated and validated results that are contextualized and are highly actionable, and we deliver this continuously. So NST Assure combines continuous active attack surface discovery, and do note the fact that we use the term active attack surface discovery. It is not a passive attack surface discovery. And we combine this with automated and manual penetration testing to identify the most business critical risks present in an organization's external perimeter. These assessments are intelligence driven and they cover multiple channels. We collect intelligence from ClearNet, from deep web and dark web. We cover the entire asset landscape, starting with network infra, cloud, web apps, mobile apps, APIs, and devices. And we provide the objective of the platform is to provide a managed threat surface validation, provide real-time data in terms of analytics and dashboards, make sure that continuous security assessments are enabled using the platform, provide a platform for red and blue team collaboration, the platform has machine learning powered risk prioritization, which will identify the most critical vulnerabilities and identify and highlight it for customers, and curated cyber threat intelligence for proactive defense. So the platform also has a feature that we call threat informed defense, which passes on this the threat information and intelligence to the blue teams so that they can ingest it into their solutions and be able to defend the organizations better. So I think I've taken a little bit more time than I intended to. So I would like to invite my colleague, Mr. Arun Thomas, now to give a deeper dive into NST Assure, to explain a little bit more about how we achieve what we're talking about here. And then we will get into the question and answer sessions. So thank you for your time. Over to you, Arun.
Thanks, Sudhir. Hello, everyone. The NST Assure Continuous Security Assurance platform is comprised of different functional modules. The Active Attack Surface Management solution, which is actually doing the purpose of discovering the assets in a very dynamic way, validating those observations. There is another module called CAPTAS. CAPTAS stands for Continuous Autonomous or Automated Penetration Testing as a Service, which leverages on technology and people skills for doing active, manual, and hybrid penetration testing. We have another module called APT SIM, which will be mimicking the characteristics of the adversary groups or APT groups. And another module which is coming up in near future is called TID. We call it as Cyber Threat Informed Defense. This is responsible for conversion of the security assessment observations into intelligence bundles. We will start with the Active Attack Surface Management solution. You may be wondering why we are calling it as Active Attack Surface Management solution. There is a reason. The conventional EASM solutions are mostly doing passive discovery or active discovery on a very limited interval. The problem with passive discovery is that the observations you're going to see will be mostly technology centric, and these observations may not be really relevant from security perspective. If you are going to get bombarded with a lot of noisy observations, and if further manual work or expertise is needed on validating or understanding the security risk involved in that, it's not going to work out. So our approach to attack surface management is active. This means that we will be actively and passively discovering all the assets owned by the organization exposed to internet over different channels, and then validate that observation with the help of algorithms and manual expertise before presenting those observations to you. We do it across all the channels like ClearNet, Deep Web, and Dark Web. All the discovered observations are validated and manually vetted before presenting it to you to avoid the issue of false positives. The Active Attack Surface Management module also has an integrated EVM component. EVM stands for External Vulnerability Management component. That means that all your workloads are assessed for vulnerabilities at the time of every iteration of the EASM scan. Infrastructure vulnerability scanning, web application vulnerability scanning, mobile application vulnerability identification, and component vulnerability identification will be done by the platform along with attack surface management. For the curation and contextualization and validation, we're going to use algorithmic help, but nothing can replace human expertise. So it is a mix of human expertise and machine power that we use for curation and validation. We look at all the different kinds of workloads and asset categories. This includes network assets, multi-cloud assets across all the leading cloud service providers, web applications, mobile applications, APIs and services, and OT devices and other related domain assets. So we are not limiting ourselves to cloud, on-premise, or OT, or anything like that. Anything that is owned by the organization, exposed to outside, either intentionally or inadvertently, will be discovered by the platform. These are some of the sample data sets which will be discovered or identified after every iteration of the active EASM scan. And we have hundreds of data sets like that, and the data sets will vary based on the context and the target organization. We believe that attack surface discovery or attack surface monitoring should be aligned or should take the approach of advisories. We know that MITRE has multiple different frameworks known as MITRE attack frameworks, which is actually consolidating, or it is a collection of different kinds of techniques and techniques used by all known advisories and APT groups. And our discovery process that is actually done by the active EASM module is completely in alignment with MITRE pre-attack framework, which is actually focusing on two pre-stages of an attack kill chain, which is reconnaissance and weaponization. So that means that every observation we discover will be validated and risk scored, and an attacker-centric approach will be taken for identification, validation, and curation of the discoveries. We are not limiting there. We have the CAPTAS module, which is responsible for the active penetration testing. That does things in alignment with MITRE enterprise metrics and all the different other flavors of the MITRE metrics will also be considered. That means that when we assess a cloud workload or an application hosted in cloud, depending upon the nature of that application, the specific tactics, techniques, and other sub-techniques related to that will be applied for identification of the security risk related to that. This includes Office 365, Azure AD, Google workloads, and software as a service solutions, infrastructure as a service solutions, and mobiles as well. Most of the EASM solutions will be limiting their discovery process only to infrastructure assets and web applications. Our approach is very different. We will be identifying every other kind of assets like mobile applications also. When someone from the information security team log into the NST Assure platform, this is what they are going to see. This is the NST Assure dashboard. And here the discovery is actually happening against the top level domain or the parent domain. We understand that an enterprise organization may have multiple parent domains, and there may be a need to monitor all those parent domains. And a group CISO like you might need to see a consolidated dashboard of all entities that comes under the purview. For that, a consolidated dashboard of all the TLDs will also be available. In that drop-down menu, you can select a specific TLD, or you can select the consolidated group dashboard to see the overall security posture of the organization. And this is a section where we are going to list category-wide asset identified along with the risk score. The network assets 99 means that 99 network assets related to that specific parent domain was identified. Similarly, identified web assets, mobile assets, and cloud assets count is seen here. And under each section, you can see a risk score. The risk score is actually demonstrating the inherent risk from these exposed assets altogether. For example, 40 means that it's a value between 1 to 100. 40 means that out of the 99 network assets exposed in this case, the total risk score to the organization is 40. And this particular field can be used for indicating or measuring the progress of the external security posture. You may have invested quite a lot of money on compensatory security controls like WAF, content inspection gateways, perimeter security solutions, DDoS, and a lot of other stuff. And whether those compensatory security solutions are actually doing its job properly, whether those investments are are actually making sense or not, you can measure it with the risk scoring calculation. And just below that, you will also be finding a field known as risk trend. That means that after every iteration of the active attack surface management scanning and validation, a risk score will be calculated. And that risk score and the findings will be compared with the previous iteration of the scan, and a risk trend score will be shown here. So by looking at this field, you will be able to identify the progress that you're making in the external attack surface posture over time. And we will be making this data available over historical data will be available for the CISOs for talking to their C-level executives or the board members or demonstrating the improvements over time. There is an organization risk score which consolidate all the different kinds of risk identified, and that can be used as a number for indicating the overall risk posture as well. The next session is actually interesting. This is called exposure trend analysis. This is where we're going to find different kinds of exposure categories and the number of discoveries against each of those. The orange bar is actually representing the current scan statistics, and the blue bar shows the previous scan statistics. Assets discovered, services and ports discovered, vulnerabilities of web applications, mobile applications, cloud security issues identified, domain intelligence related issues identified, spear phishing campaigns discovered, source codes and repos. So many different aspects of category-wide exposure trend analysis will be displayed in this tab. When we go to the next session, we have a field called asset reputation map. This is actually listing the discovered assets along with their geographical location and the reputation score of that. If you're hovering your mouse over a specific dot, you'll be showing the geographical location of the asset and the total risk score or the IP reputation score of that particular asset there. We have a section which is actually bringing you the top riskiest assets you need to bother about. This list will be, enlisting the top 5 assets you need to immediately act on from the vulnerability management perspective, or which needs immediate attention from the CISOs level. The top sensitive exposures will be listing all the different types of exposures. This includes API keys exposed, databases exposed, inner door and control panel exposures, or any other kind of exposures which can somehow be misused by an attacker for planning or executing different kinds of attacks. And as I mentioned before, the EVM module will be doing in-depth vulnerability analysis and validation of that. The severity-wide categorization of the vulnerabilities discovered can be seen in the right pane. Similarly, technology-specific, count of top ports and services and front-end libraries, back-end libraries, and all those things can be seen in the right pane. The next section, it's for the analyst. Your internal teams might need to know more information about all of these discoveries. They'll have a lot of questions and they might need to do further manual analysis, or they might need our help in understanding it more. And all those things can be seen in the dataset section. So all these fields I have explained are clickable, and when you click on that any specific field, it will go to that specific field and more details can be seen here. Let me quickly show you some of the data sets. We have not included all the data sets. It's a huge count of data sets are there. So we are going to take you through a few data set categories. The one that we are seeing is a network asset category. The network asset identified along with their geolocation, ownership information, and risk level are listed here. And if you look at the threat field, in case if any kind of threat is being reported against this particular asset, those information will be available there. All the entries here are listed based on the risk level. The top riskiest assets will be coming on top of that. Multiple pages will be there. You can click on the specific pages and see more details about that. The next section is actually talking about web assets. Web assets will be identifying all the active web applications along with their hosting provider, web reputation score, and interestingly, it will also be reporting issues like defacement related issues, or if a particular web application is not available, or if there is an availability kind of a risk that will be projected to you here. And if there is no risk, it will be reported as no error. All the web assets will be listed like this. Next. Okay, so the cloud assets will discover your cloud footprint from an external attacker's point of view. We will not be collecting any kind of read-only keys for auditing for this discovery purpose. This is actually bringing you what an attacker can see from outside. All your cloud footprint that an attacker can see will be presented to you in the cloud assets section. This includes different kinds of categories like storage buckets, cloud apps, databases, VMs and containers, other assets, services, a lot of other information will be there in the cloud assets section. We also have a specific section for cloud security observations. Once a cloud asset is identified, if there is a misconfiguration or a security flaw that can be exploited by an attacker, that needs further action. So that validation and analysis will be done and will be presented to you in a risk-rated manner in the cloud security observations page. You will have all the details needed for further management of the risk in this field. The web application vulnerability will be doing web application vulnerability scanning, and validated false positive removed findings will be available to you in this page. The top riskiest vulnerabilities based on the severity score will be listed on top. Affected path, a category, and more details about the vulnerabilities will be there. And if you want to download this web application vulnerability report, you can download it by clicking on the download report option. The web application vulnerability scanning is done with a combination of multiple tools. This includes our custom tools, open source tools, commercial tools, a lot of different kinds of intelligences incorporated into this module for web application vulnerability identification. We have made it really comprehensive. Same is the case for infrastructure vulnerabilities. All your network assets will have the vulnerability scanning results listed here, along with the severity and other details, and the report can also be downloaded as a separate report. We're not stopping there. So we will be pulling out all your mobile applications. Mobile applications in the Android Play Store and iOS Play Store will be pulled out. And in the drop-down menu, you can select a specific application. You can see the total risk score of that application, configuration-related flaws, presence in third-party stores, hard-coded credentials, and the actual security observations are actually listed in the notable section, which can be exploited by an attacker. So even if you have 20 or 30 mobile application, all those things will be pulled out in every iteration of the full-fledged active EASM scan, and analysis will be done for detection of the risk. This is another interesting data set. We call it as component vulnerability analysis. We do in-depth analysis of technology, the front-end libraries, back-end libraries, SDKs, plugins, content management systems, operating systems, and other elements involved in your web and mobile workloads will be identified along with their version information. And with the help of algorithms, we will be predicting the component vulnerabilities. This is somewhat like the software composition analysis that is done against a published applications. Software composition analysis is an offline practice which will be done at the CI/CD level before the application publication. So it will not be covering the vulnerabilities that will be discovered at a later date. The component vulnerability analysis will cover that gap, and the component vulnerability analysis, if there is an exploitable vulnerability there, we'll be paying more attention to that. And just like any other vulnerability analysis report, those reports also can be downloaded as a separate report here. Okay, so you may be wondering, so many observations, right? We may have 2000 or 2500 observations out of a full-fledged active attack surface management scan. What I'm going to do with all these validated observations? Interestingly, out of these observations, only a fraction of those really needs attention from the management perspective, vulnerability management perspective. Only less than 10% of those vulnerabilities will have any kind of business impact if it is going to get exploited. We're going to handpick those vulnerabilities with the help of machines, and also with the manual expertise. We'll be handpicking that fraction of vulnerabilities, and we'll be doing a security assessment of that with the help of manual expertise that is called EASM triggered security assessment. Attack surface management triggered security assessment. That means after every iteration of EASM, you will have an EASM triggered penetration testing report available to you, which will tell you these are the issues which you need to really focus on. This may be out of the 1,000 observations, there may be only 8 or 10 observations which really needs attention from the vulnerability management perspective. So the platform can also cover your periodic security assessment requirements, where the EASM triggered security assessments are there that can be managed from the platform. Similarly, the quarterly security assessment requirements or monthly or annual or annual security assessment requirements can also be covered by the platform. So when you click on a security assessment report, the security assessment project, it will be taking you to the security assessment project dashboard. Here, again, you can see vulnerability prioritization. The 5 there actually shows the number of issues that you need to immediately attend from the risk perspective. Total vulnerabilities, open and close vulnerabilities, OWASP, CWE, PCI-DSS, rate risk, severity-wide grouping, all those information will be available along with the project meta information. And we have an artificial intelligence enabled collaboration agent integrated into the platform, which will be helping you to securely retrieve reports, track case, or schedule debriefing sessions, or requests for revalidation, etc. Additionally, the artificial intelligence agent is intent aware, and it can identify the user intent. And if you want to talk to a delivery manager, a technical delivery manager, or if you want to interact with a security researcher or a penetration tester, you will have options to hand off the communication to the real security researcher in backend. So that means that we are going to act as your external SOC. In addition to continuously monitoring and identifying and validating the security risk from the external posture, we're going to continuously look at the issues and report it to you, and we are going to be available to you as a shared team, as a kind of external SOC for threat management. Okay, so the observations identified, the penetration testing observations identified will be listed in the below section. So there will be so many different types of actions you can take on those observations. If you want to see specific details about that observation, you can click on that view button that will be showing you more details about that vulnerability. Similarly, so when you click on that button, you will be finding more details about that vulnerability, all the details that you need, including the POC, impact, remediation, risk scoring, all those stuff as needed in an enterprise environment will be available. There are so many other collaboration options available for every observation. And if you think that this observation, and if you're not agreeing with this observation, or if you have a different viewpoint about this observation, you can raise a dispute against that specific observation by clicking on the dispute button. And if you want to add your comments, you can add remarks, or if you want to request more details, you can raise a request for that. And if you think that the severity of this vulnerability is not contextual, or it is not really making sense, you can raise a request for changing the severity. All those options are the supported actions on the vulnerability entries listed in the portal. So this is what we have currently in the platform. We're not stopping there. Currently the platform is actually doing automated penetration testing as a service with the help of real hackers and manual experts. And we believe that in very near future, the attacks are actually becoming algorithmic. So does there is a need for doing security assessment also in an algorithmic way. So we are taking efforts to convert automated security assessments into autonomous security assessments. The platform will become continuous autonomous penetration testing as a service. That doesn't mean that the human element will be completely removed. There will always be a human element needed, because however good is the algorithms, manual expertise cannot be replaced by an algorithm. So it is a hybrid platform which does autonomous penetration testing as a service with the help of skilled manual penetration testers. And again, we believe that the security observations that you're going to get either in the portal or as PDF report or as Excel tracker are not really consumable. It's like unless you convert that security observations into something consumable or mission readable, it is of no use. So we call this concept as cyber threat informed defense or CTID.
Hey,
So
Arun, I'm sorry to intervene. We are kind of running out of time now. You may take maybe maximum 1 minute and then we'll have to get to QA.
Sure. Yeah, so the defense instrumentation will be helping your web application firewalls and security gateways to ingest intelligence needed for defending attacks. And the response instrumentation will be helping your SOC teams to ingest this intelligence into the SIEMs and SOAR solutions for proactively detecting exploitation attempts against the vulnerabilities discovered. Soon we will have options for integrating the solution into the CI/CD pipelines and pre-production environments for you to enable automated security assessments against the agile applications being developed, and auto provisioning is coming into all leading cloud service providers. These are some of the upcoming features of the platform. I'll quickly take you through some of the use cases. Most of the use cases we have already seen it. You can use the platform for comprehensively assessing the security posture or manage the attack surface. You can meet your compliance requirements by doing all different kinds of security assessments, eliminate attack vectors by making use of the vulnerability management capabilities of the platform. And additionally, if you're interested in identifying the risk of your vendors or partners, either as a one-time activity or as a continuous activity, you can make use of that by selecting that particular use case. So that's all we have from this presentation. Thank you, everyone, and over to you, Vikas.
Great, Arun and Sudhir. Amazing turnout today. So we have got about 425 at a point. Thank you very much for joining in. Let's do a quick Q&A. So go ahead, raise your hand and please ask short question and short answer. OK, let's not get into discussion in a Q&A format. So Gunjan, go ahead, ask your question now. Next, we will have Mr. Mahesh. Yeah, Gunjan, go ahead.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for the wonderful session. I think it's a good session. Just want to understand. So this is a SaaS service, right? That you're talking about.
Yeah. So we call this a high touch SaaS service. So we believe that enterprise security cannot be just run as a self-service, no-touch platform. As we said, we come from a deep offensive security background. We deliver this as a service with high levels of touch points to ensure that customer requirements are met. The red team, blue team collaboration I mentioned.
Yeah. So my question was actually, if this is a SaaS service, how do you really target, let's say, web applications which are, which are only internally accessible and not really externally facing?
That's a good question. So today our platform is only available for external security assurance. We are only covering assets that are internet facing. Very shortly, that is by Q1 2023, we will have the capability to extend the platform into pre-production environments. Because there's a lot of activity that happens in pre-production environments where applications are continuously in development. But today we only cover the externally exposed assets. So as you can see, we start these exercises with zero knowledge. So we look at it completely from an attacker perspective. The continuous service is conducted from a zero knowledge on a zero knowledge basis. However, we can conduct gray box and other kinds of assessments also using the platform. So today we cover the externally exposed assets. We will extend into pre-production and staging environments in the next quarter.
Great, sounds good.
Thanks. Yeah. Because there are only two hands, so can I get a chance to ask another question?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you. And there was a question on the vendor or the third-party assessment as well, which you covered. How do you really cover that piece?
So again, with the permission of the vendor, of course, we can conduct a passive as well as an active assessment against our external security posture. we can give a snapshot and a score of the vendor's risk posture by conducting the assessment. So this can be done as a one-time exercise for a one-time risk assessment against a vendor, or a continuous assessment on a frequent basis.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Gunjan. Mahesh, go ahead. Ask your question now.
Hi, team. Thank you very much for it. This was very nice sessions. So my question is, sir, you're going to do some security assurance SaaS services. So what are the different type of compliance and laws and regulations are the company's perspective? Suppose different companies, different compliance and regulations and laws. So how your product is fit into the requirement of the companies?
Yeah, so we are, as I mentioned, we are a certain empaneled organization in India. So we work with quite a lot of banks. We support, or we cover PCI DSS compliance, RBI regulations, other regulations from regulators in insurance and other verticals. And we have some global customers that we work with too. So we cover HIPAA, ISO 27001 compliance requirements, SOC 2 compliance requirements. So all security assessment requirements per the most popular compliance and regulatory requirements are covered in the platform. We are very well aligned with them. And our reports and the results can be used as evidence for meeting the penetration testing and security assessment requirements as per these compliance.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Cool, sounds good. Vikas, you are next. Vikas, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, Prateek, you go ahead, please. Prateek, you may ask your question now.
Okay, thank you, Arun and Sudeep. Sorry,
yeah, you are audible.
Okay.
Hi, Prateek.
Thank you, Arun and Sudeep, for the lovely session. Just wanted to check on one thing. So how is your existing tool can be integrated if we already having an ITAM tool or a SOC tool with us?
Did it say an IDAM or a SOC tool?
ITAM, IT asset management tool, basically.
IT asset management tool. Arun, do you want to take this question?
Yeah,
you're muted
so,
if you want.
We can our approach is actually not asset centric and risk centric, but the information that you already have in your asset management solution can make our job really easy. We can integrate those feeds and populate our asset inventory. We keep a threat profile and asset inventory for every target organization. We have capability to integrate that asset data, populate it, and make sure that further validation of the discovered assets can be done against that.
Okay, so does that mean the tool automatically discovers the assets in the infrastructure?
Then we will compare it. Yeah, that is correct, sir. And then we will compare it against the one that your tool is internally providing.
Okay.
Awesome.
And how about the SOC part? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, SOC is, to the SOC team, we will be providing two different types of intelligence bundles for response instrumentation. If there is a vulnerability that can be exploited by an attacker, we will be providing them the SIEM correlation routes. It can be the normal correlation routes. It can be cross correlation routes, which can be ingested into any type of SIEM solution. Basically, we'll be providing a flavor of the Sigma routes, which can be ingested into your SIEM platform, and ERR rules or YAML rules as needed will be provided for your SOAR solutions as well. We are operationalizing the security assessment observation into vulnerability intelligence by doing it, and this concept is called Cyber Threat Informed Defense, CTID.
Great. We can take one last question, and guys, typically we finish at 12 o'clock, but because we have Kahoot as well, that's why we had mentioned that this session will be 10 minutes delayed as well. Okay, so 30 seconds for question and answer both. So Vijayji, go ahead. Not Vijayji, did I unmute? Yeah, Vijayji, go ahead. Ask your question now. You should be able to unmute now. Yeah.
So thanks Sudhir and Arun. It's very nice session. So my query is from Arun. So Arun, because this tool is capable to do the scanning of the OT devices, so it is specific to the OEM or it's a generic, because we have different, you can say the SCADA system, PLCs, ECUs. So can we do the scanning of all the OT devices?
Yeah, whatever exposed and discoverable from outside internet will be discovered. But in case of OT devices, one thing that we need to keep in mind, the discovery will be passive there. We are intentionally doing it passive because those devices are fragile devices. And even the slightest of the active probing can bring it down or create availability issues. So considering that, the discovery will be done in a passive way for the OT devices.
But Arun, it
Okay,
thanks.
Discussion
Arun.
we can have
Yeah.
later on, right?
Yeah,
We are running out
yeah.
of time, guys. So amazing session. Thank you very much, Sudhir and Arun. And thanks everyone for joining in. Now is the time for Kahoot quiz. There will be about 7 questions. I'm sure you were standing and your brain was functioning fast and you were active and you have grasped all the information what Sudhir and Arun has presented. So go to kahoot.it and your pin is going to come next. The winner is going to get a nice iPhone 14 that NST Cyber is going to sponsor.